is just going to be recapping what we have went through so far, and also we will talk about the plan going forward and how blended learning is going to look and work for us as a class. So we will start off again with the cycle of analysis. We have used the cycle of analysis for our fitness block as well as our softball block. So just to recap and go through the cycle of analysis again. The very first stage of the cycle of analysis is to assess performance by collecting data. So we need to collect some data. Then once we have the data, we can analyze it and we are able to identify our strengths and weaknesses within our performance. Then progressing on from that, once we know our strengths and weaknesses, we can plan and carry out our PDP. That is when we go into carrying out our training approaches that we have established that we want to use. Then progressing on from that, we would go on to monitoring and adapting our PDP. So this is when you would make sure that the program was working. If you weren't seeing any improvements, then you could adapt. But first of all, before you adapt, you need to monitor it. So you monitor your program, and then you would adapt or adjust the program in any way that you seem fit to make sure that you are seeing improvements on your targets. Then we would evaluate the effectiveness of the PDP. This is similar to when we retested. That is evaluating effectiveness. So we would already have data, we would retest, and then we would measure the retested data to the original data to see if there was any difference, to see if our program had helped us develop. Then we'd be right back to the start by assessing and performance by collecting data. So far we have done a fitness block and a softball block. So we're going to start and just have a wee discussion around the fitness block. So the very first thing that we done in the fitness block is we assessed our performance by collecting data. So we started the cycle of analysis by collecting data on a physical factor. So to do this, we completed one standardized fitness test. So here's a wee question for you: which sub-factors did this allow us to collect data on? Was it CRE? Was it our movement, or was it our problem solving? Again, in our softball block now, we've done the exact same thing, the very first stage of the cycle of analysis. We assessed our performance by collecting data. So we completed the cycle of analysis by collecting data on our physical skills. So I hope you can remember this time we completed one method of gathering data for our physical skills in softball. So hopefully you remember we were looking at our batting, catching and throwing. So here's a wee question around that. Which sub-factors did this allow us to collect data on? So the method that we used to gather data on, did it allow us to gather data on our accuracy, timing or flair? And moving on again, still on the softball block, you should remember that we completed a method of gathering data for the mental factor as well. So we've done the physical factor and the mental factor. Again, we were right at the start of the psychoanalysis because we're still at this stage just gathering data. So to do this, we completed one method of gathering data for the mental factor. And again, here's another wee question for you. Which sub-factors did this allow us to collect data on? Was it our fair play? Was it our concentration? Or was it our throwing? Okay, so once we have gathered the data, you then have data to be able to analyze it to see if you can identify your strengths and weaknesses. You can't do that unless you have gathered the data. So that's why that is the very first step within the cycle of analysis. So in our fitness block, we carried out a standardized test. Once we had the results of our standardized test, we compared them with the national average to see what our results were, or what your results were, compared to the national average. That helped us identify our weakness. And the softball block, the method of gathering data we used, we were able to work out our throwing. That throwing was our weakness. Again, I've probably repeated this, but hope you remember that we were looking to see if what our weakness was. Our options was it throwing, was it catching, was it batting? Through the data that we had gathered, we were able to identify that throwing was our weakness. So we planned our approaches round throwing being the weakness. Also in the softball block, we carried out a method of gathering data that allowed us to identify what mental factor was impacting on our performance. So in this method of gathering data, you had the opportunity to identify there was many sub-factors that could have been impacting your performance, and we were able to identify what sub-factor within the mental factor was negatively impacting our performance. Again, then we try to do different approaches that would help us improve on the weakness that we had identified. So, first couple of stages of the psychoanalysis are, we need to have gathered data. We need the data to be able to identify our strengths and weaknesses within our performance. Then we would progress into, we planned and carried out our PDP. So once we know our weaknesses that we like to target, that is when we start to plan and say, right, what approaches are we going to use? So when we were doing our fitness block, I hope you remember that we used the principles of training to plan our PDP. So here's another wee question for you. Can you name the words that fit in the acronym SPORTFIT? So each letter in there is a word. Can you name them? Also, so the fitness and the softball blocks, they were both carried out for the same duration. They both had the same frequency, but there was different training approaches used. So the reason why this was because the training approaches that we decided to use had to be specific to our weakness. So when we were doing our fitness block and we were looking at the physical, we were going to have different approaches because they needed to be specific to that. And the softball block, we were looking at physical skills. So the sub-factor within that, our training approaches need to be specific to that as well. So that is why they would always change. Our training approaches will be specific to our targets and our weaknesses that we've identified. So duration for each block was 6 weeks. The frequency of training was 2 times per week. Normally we would try and train on a Monday morning and a Thursday morning. Our duration of training was 15 to 20 minutes. So hopefully you'll remember that each time we were doing one of our approaches, it would last roughly around 15 to 20 minutes. The only time it would maybe do different if we were in a softball game, and that was maybe perhaps getting videoed to gather data. But all the approaches that we done, probably roughly about 15 to 20 minutes in both the fitness block and the softball block. Again, the training approaches, I've said, they'll be different because they were specific to your identified weaknesses. So after that, then you've been carrying out your PDP. You need to be able to monitor and adapt your PDP. The whole point of this is to be able to improve and target our weaknesses to try and make them better. So we have used 2 methods to monitor our performance for the fitness block. So we done retesting, and I've said each block was 6 weeks long. 3 weeks into the block, so halfway, we retested again. This was to give us an idea if the training approaches that we were using had made an impact. Had they benefited us? Did we see a difference? Had there been improvements? If not, that was when you would adapt and adjust the training approaches. Also, in the fitness block, we recorded our heart rate. So you might remember during some of the approaches, we said, right, stop when you come, boys. We would take a heart rate. I would maybe say your heart rate should be above 130. If it's not, we needed to adapt what we were doing. I would say the intensity needs to become higher. We need to lift the intensity to be able to get into those heart rates so that we know that our training approaches will hopefully have a positive impact. if you were down to maybe only 110 beats per minute, wouldn't have the impact that we would need. You need to be above 130, so that would be us adapting our approach by increasing the intensity. We also used one method to monitor our performance for softball block. So again, this was a completely different way of monitoring our results. This time we used knowledge of results. So you might remember when we were playing a game, I would have a board at the side. Each time there was a successful throw, I would make a tally mark. I would do that for the whole time that the softball game was going on. I would then have knowledge of results. So if I had that from maybe week 2, by the time we'd maybe got to week 4 or week 5, I would come back and do the knowledge of results again. It would be the exact same. Usually play a game. I would watch every time there was a successful throw. I would make a tally mark. I would then be able to look back at the different weeks and hopefully I would have seen an improvement. I should have seen more successful throws. If not, we would have to adjust and adapt our PDP. If there was, then we would know our PDP was being effective and it was helping us improve our weakness, which was throwing, so we were on target. This has allowed us to see if there's any improvement. That's basically what this monitoring and adapting our PDP is. Then, as I say, the final stage of this echo analysis is to evaluate it. Again, we spoke about that's when you retest and you do the knowledge of the results. That's you evaluating your PDP. We should have, and we did, we've seen a big increase in our fitness levels in the testing, and we've seen a lot more successful throws in the game of softball, which led us to believe that the approaches that we were doing had a positive impact. Okay, that was just a quick recap, boys. Hopefully that brings a lot of things back to you, because a lot of that stuff will be based on the assignment that's coming up. But blended learning moving forward. So just to give you a wee idea of how blended learning is going to work and how it will look like for us as a class going forward. So every Monday at period 1, there will be a live video call. This call will discuss and go through the week's PowerPoints and tasks. So pretty much just be like what this is going to be. I'll be live. I'll be working through the PowerPoint, taking any questions you may have, and I will discuss the tasks and the assignments that are going to come up based on the PowerPoint. But if you can't make the call for whatever reason, if you don't manage to get on the live call, the PowerPoint will be uploaded to the files section in the Teams page. Hopefully as well, there will be a link to each PowerPoint that will be a link that will take you directly to the PowerPoint on YouTube. That will hopefully also be available for you. So you all will, if you miss a video call, you will have a chance to go back and see the PowerPoint and have access to it. As I said, the PowerPoints are going to be key. You need to have looked at the PowerPoints. You need to have listened to the recorded audio on the PowerPoints, because that is going to help you and be based around all the assessments and assignments that are going to be given to you. So talking about assessments, every Thursday, period 1, there will be another live video call for you to attend. And that is when, again, I'll just be there to support any questions you have. But every Thursday, there will be an assignment uploaded onto Teams for you to complete. So our Monday is going to be live PowerPoint. We'll work through that. And then on Thursday, based on the PowerPoint and based on what's discussed on the PowerPoint, there will be an assessment on the Thursday that will follow that. That's how blended learning is going to look for us moving forward. So, a wee fun lockdown FIFA challenge. Again, every Thursday, I will post on Teams a football-related challenge to be completed. So this is the lockdown FIFA challenge. This will be testing your physicality, your control, your passing, your pace, your stamina. And we're all doing this to determine your FIFA 21 rating. Each challenge that I will post on the Thursday will come with instructions and a demonstration that will all be done by me. So this is just a bit of fun, boys. All scores and all results, they must be recorded fairly. It's just a bit of fun, but we're wanting this to be done fairly. We want this to be done right. Every challenge that I post must be returned back to me after each challenge is completed. If it's not returned to me, with the proof that I have asked for, then unfortunately it won't be accepted. It won't be valid.